The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward for what seemed like miles, its crystalline walls catching and reflecting the light of 1,000 different worlds. The architecture was designed to humble visitors, to remind them of their small place in the vast cosmic order. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. Ambassador James Reed stood at the speaker's podium, his gray suit a plain contrast to the elaborate biomechanical robes of the alien delegates surrounding him. He was the only human in the room, and at this moment, he carried the hopes of all humanity on his shoulders. At 63 years old, Reed had spent most of his life working toward this moment, though he never imagined it would happen quite like this. The council's main speaker, a tall being with shifting colors across its transparent form, looked down at Reed with what could only be described as bored amusement. Around the chamber, nearly 10,000 representatives from various spacefaring civilizations watched, many already whispering among themselves. "The Earth delegation has the floor," the main speaker announced, its voice translated simultaneously into every known language. "Though we remind the Assembly that unproven claims waste the Council's valuable time." Reed cleared his throat and pressed the small button on his collar, activating the universal translator. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council, I stand before you today with an announcement that will change the course of galactic history." He paused, letting the words settle. Earth has successfully developed and tested 7-dimensional engineering technology. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the first laugh echoed through the chamber. It started with the Quantum Collective representatives, their crystalline forms vibrating with amusement, and spread like a wave. Soon, the entire chamber was filled with various forms of alien laughter, from high-pitched trills to low, rumbling sounds that made the floor vibrate. "Order," the main speaker called out, though its own form rippled with what looked like suppressed mirth. "Ambassador Reed, surely you understand the magnitude of your claim. Even our most advanced civilizations have barely mastered 5-dimensional engineering. The Quantum Collective, with their million-year head start on your species, has only recently begun to understand 6th-dimensional theory." Reed remained straight-faced, his weathered features showing no reaction to the mockery. He had practiced this moment countless times. "We understand completely. We are prepared to demonstrate our technology at the Council's convenience." A delegate from the Silicon Consciousness, their robotic form gleaming under the chamber lights, stood up. "This is absurd. These humans barely managed faster than light travel 50 years ago. They still have internal conflicts on their homeworld. 7-dimensional engineering. They probably mistook a simple space fold for dimensional manipulation." More laughter followed. Some delegates were now pointing at Reed, making gestures that translated across species as dismissive. A few had even turned their backs, a universal sign of disrespect. The main speaker raised its appendages for silence. "Ambassador Reed, while we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for technological advancement, making such outlandish claims does not help your species' standing in the galactic community. Perhaps you should consult with your scientific community again and return when you have something more realistic to present." Reed reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, no larger than his palm. The simple black cube seemed to absorb the light around it. "With respect, we anticipated your skepticism. This is a 7th-dimensional sensor. I invite your best scientists to examine it. It will prove that we're not mistaken, and we're not lying." He placed the cube on the podium. Almost immediately, several scientific advisors from different species approached, their scanning devices already active. "We understand that this is difficult to believe," Reed continued, his voice steady. "Humanity has been seen as the newcomers, the primitive species that somehow stumbled into the galactic community. We've been patronized, underestimated, and dismissed. But today, that changes." The scientific advisors were now showing their readings to their delegates. The laughter had died down, replaced by murmurs of confusion and disbelief. "We don't seek to dominate or threaten," Reed said into the growing quiet. "We wish to share this technology with peaceful species, to advance all of us together." But first, we needed you to understand that humanity is ready for a real seat at this table." He looked up at the main speaker, whose colors had stopped shifting, frozen in what appeared to be shock. "We request a formal demonstration date. And next time, perhaps, the laughter will be replaced by productive dialogue." The silence that followed was deafening. Humanity's moment had begun, and not a single being in the chamber was laughing now. Deep beneath Europa's icy surface, Dr. Anna Thompson stood in front of the massive observation window, watching the Hyperion drive pulse with a soft blue light. The research facility, carved through 10 miles of ice, was humanity's best-kept secret for the past 20 years. The room's temperature stayed at a constant -15 degrees Celsius, necessary for the sensitive equipment that filled the chamber. She pressed her hand against the triple-layered glass, feeling the slight vibration from the drive's power core. The machine itself looked deceptively simple, a spherical structure about 30 feet in diameter, suspended in a magnetic field. But what happened inside that sphere defied conventional physics. "Dr. Thompson, the latest calculations are ready," called Tom Wilson, her young assistant. He walked up to her, tablet in hand, his breath visible in the cold air. At just 28, he was one of the brightest minds in quantum mathematics, and one of the few who could understand the complex equations that governed 7-dimensional space. Anna took the tablet, her eyes scanning the numbers. 20 years ago, her mentor, Dr. Michael West, had discovered the first hints of 7-dimensional manipulation in an ordinary physics experiment. The scientific community had called him mad. 3 years later, he disappeared during the first attempted activation of a prototype drive, leaving only his research notes and a warning. "We're playing with forces we barely understand. The power fluctuations in Sector 7 have stabilized," Tom reported, pointing to a graph on the screen. "We've finally solved the quantum tunneling issue that killed the last 3 test drones." Anna nodded, remembering the failed tests. Each drone had simply vanished, pulled into dimensions they couldn't monitor. "Run the simulation again. We need to be absolutely certain." The main computer screen lit up, displaying a holographic model of the drive. Numbers and equations floated in the air, casting blue shadows across their faces. The simulation showed a small probe successfully entering and exiting 7-dimensional space, something that had been impossible just 6 months ago. "Dr. Thompson," a voice called from the control room. "We're getting a priority message from Earth Command." Anna hurried to the communication station, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous chamber. The screen showed Admiral Parker, his face grave. "Doctor, we need the drive operational. Now. The Mersians have given Earth an ultimatum: submission or annihilation. Their fleet will reach our solar system in 30 days. The news hit her like a physical blow. The Mersians were one of the oldest spacefaring races, known for their advanced technology and absolute belief in their superiority. Their 5th-dimensional warships were legendary, capable of destroying entire planets. "Admiral, we're close, but we haven't even tested it with living subjects yet," Anna protested. Dr. West's notes specifically warned about rushing the process. "Doctor, we don't have a choice," the Admiral replied firmly. "The Prometheus is ready. It just needs your drive." Anna looked back at the Hyperion drive, its gentle pulsing somehow more ominous now. This was exactly what Michael had feared, being forced to use the technology before they'd fully understood it. But he had also written something else in his final notes. "If we succeed, humanity will never be vulnerable again." "Tom," she called out, her decision made. "Begin final preparation sequence. We're moving to live testing." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Teams of scientists and engineers worked in shifts, checking and double-checking every component. The Hyperion drive's core began to glow brighter, its light taking on colors that human eyes had never seen before. Anna stood at her workstation, making the final adjustments to the quantum matrix. On her screen, a photo of Michael West smiled back at her, his last known picture, taken just before his disappearance. "We'll finish what you started," she whispered. Drive is at 90% capacity, Tom announced. All systems are green. Anna took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the activation switch. Everything they knew about physics, about reality itself, was about to change. Either they would give humanity its greatest weapon against extinction, or they would fail spectacularly. "Begin final sequence," she ordered. The drive's hum changed pitch, rising to a sound that made their teeth vibrate. As the power levels climbed, Anna thought she saw something impossible. The drive seemed to exist in multiple places at once, overlapping with itself like a cosmic echo. 20 years of work, countless sacrifices, and humanity's future all came down to this moment. In 30 days, they would either change the course of human history, or there would be no humans left to record it. The Hyperion drive pulsed one final time, and the impossible became reality. The United Earth Council chamber was eerily silent as the Mergen hologram floated above the central platform. The being of pure energy towered 20 feet tall, its form shifting between shades of purple and gold. High Admiral John Peters stood before it, representing Earth's military forces, his decorated uniform a stark contrast to the ethereal alien presence. "Your species has 28 Earth days remaining," the Mergen announced, its voice resonating through the chamber like distant thunder. "We are generous to give you this time to accept our protection." The Admiral's jaw tightened. Everyone in the room knew that protection was just a polite word for enslavement. Through the chamber's massive windows, they could see the night sky where, beyond their view, the Mergen fleet waited at the edge of the solar system. "And if we refuse?" Peters asked, though he already knew the answer. The Mergen's form pulsed brighter. "Then we will do what we have done to 17 other civilizations who rejected our benevolence. Your cities will burn. Your oceans will boil. Your species will become nothing more than a footnote in galactic history." Screens around the chamber showed live feeds from orbital telescopes. The Mergen fleet was massive. Over 300 ships, each one nearly the size of Earth's moon. Their fifth-dimensional technology allowed them to exist partially outside normal space, making them almost impossible to hit with conventional weapons. "We have observed your species for decades," the Mergen continued. "Your frequent wars, your environmental mistakes, your political divisions. You need our guidance. Under our protection, you will serve a greater purpose." General Linda Martinez stood up from her seat in the council. "And what purpose would that be?" "The same purpose that all protected species serve. Your resources will fuel our expansion. Your people will maintain our ships. Your worlds will become staging grounds for our next phase of protection. It is an honor we have bestowed on many before you." The chamber's air felt heavy with tension. Humanity had faced threats before, but nothing like this. The Mergen's technology was centuries ahead of Earth's best weapons. Their ships could strike from dimensional angles that made defense impossible. 28 days, the hologram repeated. "We suggest you spend this time preparing your people for their new role in the galaxy. Resistance would be unfortunate." The hologram flickered out, leaving the chamber in darkness for a moment before the lights returned. Immediately, the room erupted in voices. "We can't fight them," one counselor shouted. "You've seen their weapons." "We can't submit either," another argued. "Look what happened to the Centaurians when they accepted Mergen protection. Their entire civilization is nothing but a slave race now." Admiral Peters raised his hand for silence. "We have one advantage the Mergens don't know about. Project Hyperion." The room grew quiet again. Most of the council members had only heard rumors about the secret project on Europa. Some thought it was a desperate last resort. Others believed it was a waste of resources. "The Hyperion drive was successfully tested yesterday," Peters continued. "Dr. Thompson reports that it exceeds all expectations. The Prometheus is being fitted with the drive as we speak." General Martinez pulled up a holographic display of the Prometheus. The ship looked tiny compared to the Mergen vessels, but its design was unlike anything humanity had built before. Its hull seemed to shift and change even in the hologram, as if it couldn't decide which dimension it wanted to exist in. One ship against 300. Someone asked skeptically. One seven-dimensional ship against a fleet of fifth-dimensional vessels, Peters corrected. The mathematics suggests they won't even be able to track us, let alone hit us. The council chamber screen suddenly lit up with a new alert. The Mergens were moving, their massive fleet shifting position to surround the entire solar system. They were setting up a blockade to prevent any escape attempts. They're confident, Martinez observed. They don't believe we have any chance of resistance. Admiral Peters smiled for the first time that day. Then we have another advantage. They're underestimating us, just like everyone else has. He turned to face the council members. I need your authorization to proceed with the Prometheus mission. We have one shot at this. If we succeed, humanity doesn't just save itself. We change the power balance of the entire galaxy. The council members looked at each other, then at the screen showing the massive Mergen fleet. The choice was clear. Fight with their new technology, or submit to eternal servitude. The vote was unanimous. In 28 days, either humanity would prove itself to the galaxy, or there would be no humanity left to prove anything at all. The TSV Prometheus hung suspended in Europa's largest underground dock, its hull gleaming under the powerful floodlights. Captain Robert Kane stood on the observation deck, watching as crews made final adjustments to humanity's most advanced warship. The vessel was relatively small compared to other military ships, only 300 meters in length, but its true size was impossible to measure. It existed partially in 7 different dimensions at once. Beautiful, isn't she? Chief Engineer Mark Foster walked up beside him, his eyes reflecting the strange patterns that rippled across the ship's surface. Though I have to admit, sometimes looking at her gives me a headache. Kane nodded in agreement. The Prometheus's hull seemed to shift and blur, parts of it appearing and disappearing as it phased between dimensions. Even with their neural modifications, the bridge crew could only perceive about 60% of the ship's true form. The rest existed in dimensions the human brain wasn't designed to process. Final system check is starting, Foster reported, consulting his tablet. Dr. Thompson wants you to see something in the engine room. They took the gravity lift down to the ship's core, where the Hyperion drive pulsed with its characteristic blue light. Dr. Thompson stood before the massive engine, her hands moving through holographic controls that seemed to bend in impossible ways. Captain, she greeted them. We've completed the neural interface calibration. Are you ready for your final sync? Kane stepped onto the neural platform, a circular area surrounded by quantum sensors. As captain, his connection to the ship had to be deeper than anyone else's. The medical team had spent months modifying his brain to handle the strain of perceiving multiple dimensions. Beginning sync, Dr. Thompson announced. The air around Kane began to shimmer. Suddenly, his perception expanded. He could see the Prometheus in its entirety. Not just its physical form, but its dimensional echoes. The ship existed in normal space, but also reached into higher dimensions, each layer adding new capabilities that defied conventional physics. Status? Dr. Thompson asked, watching his vital signs. It's incredible, Kane managed to say. Through his enhanced perception, he could see how the ship's weapons could fire through dimensional gaps, how its engines could slit between layers of reality, how its shields could deflect attacks by redirecting them into empty dimensions. Foster checked his readings. Neural sync at 95%. That's the highest we've achieved yet. The captain's modifications are holding steady. The rest of the bridge crew arrived for their final preparations. Lieutenant David Miller, the weapons officer, whose mathematical genius had helped design the ship's dimensional targeting system. Navigation officer Emma Wright, whose natural spatial awareness had made her the perfect choice for plotting courses through 7-dimensional space. Communications officer Jack Turner, whose modified brain could process signals from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Time for the final test. Dr. Thompson announced. Full power to all systems. The Hyperion drive's hum deepened. Around them, reality seemed to flex. Those without neural modifications had to leave the engine room. Their unaltered minds couldn't handle the spatial distortions. Kane felt the ship respond to his thoughts. Through the neural interface, the Prometheus became an extension of his own body. He could feel its power, its readiness. Each weapon, each system, each dimensional shift was as natural as moving his own limbs. "All stations report," he ordered, his voice steady despite the incredible sensations flowing through the neural link. "Weapons online," Miller reported. "Dimensional targeting calibrated. Navigation ready," Wright added. 7-dimensional plots confirmed. "Communications active across all frequency bands and dimensional layers," Turner confirmed. "Engineering reports all systems green," Foster concluded. "The Hyperion drive is operating at optimal efficiency." Dr. Thompson stepped back, watching her creation come to life. "Remember, Captain, the ship's greatest strength isn't its weapons or its speed. It's its ability to exist in dimensional spaces that our enemies can't even perceive, let alone reach." Kane nodded, feeling the truth of her words through the neural link. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship, it was humanity's proof that they could transcend the limitations others try to impose on them. "Final diagnostic complete," Foster announced. "She's ready, Captain." Through the observation windows, Kane could see the dock crews clearing out. In 12 hours, they would launch. The Mersian fleet waited at the edge of their solar system, confident in their superiority, unaware that humanity had created something that would change the rules of warfare forever. "Prepare for launch sequence," Kane ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can really do." The Prometheus pulsed with power, its form shifting between dimensions, ready to carry humanity's hopes into a battle that would decide the fate of their species. The Prometheus emerged from its dimensional shift at the edge of the solar system, directly in front of the Mersian fleet. Captain Kane stood on the bridge, watching through the advanced viewing screens as hundreds of massive enemy ships shifted their positions to face them. Each Mersian vessel was the size of a small moon, their energy-based hulls glowing with an ominous purple light. "Single ship detected," the Mersian fleet commander's voice boomed through their communications. "Primitive design. Fifth-dimensional sensors indicate unusual readings." There was a pause, then something that sounded like amusement in the alien's voice. "How brave of the humans to send us a welcome gift." Lieutenant Miller at Weapons Control tensed, his hands hovering over the dimensional targeting arrays. Navigation Officer Wright kept the Prometheus steady, though maintaining position across 7 dimensions required constant adjustments. "Mersian flagship is powering up weapons," Communications Officer Turner reported, his modified brain processing data from multiple dimensional layers. They're laughing at us, sir. Their internal communications show they think this is some kind of suicide mission." Kane smiled slightly. "Open a channel to their flagship." The main screen flickered to life, showing the Mersian commander, a being of pure energy that shifted between purple and gold hues. Its form towered over its own bridge crew, radiating ancient power and absolute confidence. "This is your final chance to accept our protection," the commander announced. "Though we admit sending a single ship shows either remarkable courage or complete foolishness. Perhaps both." Kane stood up from his captain's chair, his neural link with the Prometheus feeding him data from all 7 dimensions simultaneously. "This is Captain Robert Kane of the TSV Prometheus. We're not here to submit. We're here to negotiate new terms." The Mersian commander's form pulsed with what might have been laughter. "Negotiate? You have nothing to offer except your surrender. Our scans show your vessel is significantly smaller than even our scout ships. What possible terms could you propose?" "Simple ones," Kane replied calmly. "You leave our solar system, and we don't demonstrate why picking a fight with humanity was your biggest mistake." The Mersians' response was immediate. "Target their vessel. Let's show them what real power looks like." "Sir," Turner called out, "they're powering up their main weapons. 5th-dimensional energy signatures are off the charts." "Hold position," Kane ordered. Through his neural link, He could feel the Prometheus's systems responding, shifting through dimensional layers like a dancer moving through shadows. The Mersian fleet fired. Hundreds of energy beams, capable of cutting through planets, streaked across space toward the Prometheus. Under normal circumstances, it would have been overkill, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Now, Kane commanded. Wright's hands flew across her controls. The Prometheus shifted, not just in normal space, but through dimensional layers. To the Mersian fleet, it must have looked like their target simply ceased to exist. All weapons passed through empty space, Miller reported with a grin. They can't track us in the seventh dimension. The Mersian commander's form flickered with what might have been surprise. Impossible. Where did they? Right here, Kane interrupted, as the Prometheus reappeared directly above the Mersian flagship. Would you like to discuss those terms now? Fire all weapons, the Mersian commander ordered, its voice losing its composed edge. Use all dimensional arrays. Again, the fleet fired. Again, the Prometheus danced through dimensions their weapons couldn't reach. Kane watched through the view screen as confusion spread through the enemy fleet. Their fifth-dimensional technology, once the height of military power, now seemed as primitive as throwing stones. Sir, Miller reported, I have solutions for their primary power cores. We can disable their entire fleet without causing any casualties. Kane nodded. Do it. The Prometheus's weapons fired, not energy beams or projectiles, but concentrated bursts of seven-dimensional space that simply bypassed all conventional defenses. One by one, the massive Mersian ships went dark, their power cores safely but completely shut down. What is this? The Mersian commander demanded, its confident tone replaced by something close to fear. This, Kane replied, is humanity demonstrating why you shouldn't judge a species by its age. We're not here to submit. We're not here to be protected. We're here to show you that the galaxy is bigger than you imagined, and humanity's place in it is not what you assumed. The bridge crew watched as the massive Mersian fleet drifted powerless in space, their supposedly invincible ships now nothing more than elaborate decorations against the starfield. Humanity's first real battle using seven-dimensional technology had lasted less than 5 minutes. Now, Kane said to the stunned Mersian commander, about those terms. The bridge of the Prometheus hummed with power as Captain Kane initiated the full activation sequence of the Hyperion drive. Around the ship, space itself seemed to bend and twist as seven-dimensional energy poured from the vessel's core. The disabled Mersian fleet drifted silently, their mighty warships now nothing more than expensive sculptures in space. Sir, Lieutenant Miller called out, his eyes fixed on the dimensional sensors. Something's happening to our field projection. It's growing. Through his neural link, Kane felt it too. The Hyperion drive wasn't just operating, it was evolving. Dr. Thompson had theorized this might happen, that the drive would learn and adapt to the seven-dimensional space it navigated. But no one had expected it to happen so soon. All crew, prepare for dimensional expansion, Kane ordered. Dr. Thompson, what are we seeing? Dr. Thompson's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. The drive is stabilizing itself across all 7 dimensions simultaneously. It's doing what we thought would take years to achieve. Captain, we're about to see what this ship can really do. The view screen showed impossible images as the Prometheus began to exist in all 7 dimensions at once. The ship's hull became translucent, then seemed to multiply, creating afterimages that stretched into directions human eyes were never meant to see. Even with their neural modifications, the crew could barely comprehend what they were witnessing. Mersian fleet is attempting to reactivate their power cores, Turner reported from communications. Their command channels are in chaos. They can't even scan us anymore. To their sensors, we might as well not exist. Chief Engineer Foster's voice cut through the comm system. Energy readings are off the charts. The drive is generating more power than all their ships combined. But it's not just power, it's dimensional energy. We're not just moving through dimensions anymore. We're manipulating them. Kane watched as reality rippled around the Prometheus. Their weapons weren't just advanced technology anymore. They were tools that could reshape the fabric of space itself. A single shot could now pass through multiple dimensions, making any conventional defense useless. "Sir," Miller called out, excitement in his voice, "I'm detecting something incredible. The seventh dimension. It's not just another layer of space. It's a framework that contains all the other dimensions. From here, we can see everything. Every angle, every possibility, every point in space from every possible perspective." Dr. Thompson's voice was filled with awe. This is what Michael West discovered. This is why he disappeared. He saw this coming. The moment when humanity would transcend not just space travel, but reality itself. Through the view screens, they watched as a few merchant ships managed to restore power. Their energy weapons fired again, but now it seemed almost comical. The beams passed through space where the Prometheus appeared to be, but the ship existed in so many dimensions simultaneously that attacking it was like trying to shoot a shadow. Navigation plotting new possibilities, Wright announced from her station. "From seventh-dimensional space, we can move anywhere instantly. Distance doesn't mean the same thing here. We could reach any point in the galaxy in moments." Kane stood from his captain's chair, his Neuralink showing him the full scope of what the Prometheus had become. It wasn't just a ship anymore. It was humanity's key to understanding the universe in ways no other species had achieved. "Sir," Turner called out urgently, "we're receiving signals, not just from the Mersian fleet, but from across the galaxy. Other civilizations are detecting our dimensional signature. They've never seen anything like this." Through the comm system, they could hear the chatter from dozens of species, their messages a mix of fear, awe, and disbelief. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a matter of minutes. "Captain," Dr. Thompson's voice was steady now, "we should demonstrate one more thing. Something to show them that this power isn't meant for conquest." Kane nodded, understanding. Through his Neuralink, he directed the Prometheus to execute a precise seven-dimensional maneuver. Space folded around them, and in an instant, they had moved the entire disabled Mersian fleet safely away from Earth's solar system. To the watching galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed the fleet, could have used their power for dominance. Instead, they chose to demonstrate mercy and restraint. "Send a message to all frequencies," Kane ordered. "Tell them humanity is ready for real dialogue now. Not as subjects, not as primitives, but as equals. The age of dimensional warfare is over before it began." The Prometheus pulsed with power, its very existence a testament to human ingenuity and potential. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council chamber looked very different from when Ambassador Reed had first stood there. Gone were the mocking laughs and dismissive gestures. Now, as he walked to the speaker's podium, the silence was heavy with respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. The main speaker, whose colors now shifted in nervous patterns, addressed the assembly. "The human delegation will present their proposal for sharing seven-dimensional technology with peaceful species." Reed looked around the chamber. Many of the delegates who had laughed at him now sat forward in their seats, eager to hear every word. The Mersian representatives, newly admitted back to the council after signing a non-aggression pact, kept their energy forms deliberately dim. "3 months ago, I stood here and was met with laughter," Reed began. "Today, I stand here to fulfill a promise. Humanity doesn't seek dominance, we seek understanding." Behind him, a hologram showed the Prometheus in orbit around Earth. The ship's dimensional shifts were visible even in the projection, its form rippling with possibilities that defied conventional physics. But it wasn't alone anymore. 3 more ships of similar design were under construction, each intended for scientific exploration rather than military purposes. Dr. Anna Thompson and her team have prepared educational packages for each member species, Reed continued. The basics of seven-dimensional engineering will be shared freely with any civilization that commits to using it peacefully. The chamber erupted in excited whispers. On the screens around the room, data streamed showing the first practical applications of the technology. Medical devices that could reach through dimensions to heal without surgery. Transportation systems that could cross galaxies in moments. Power sources that could tap into dimensional energy, providing endless clean power. But there are conditions. Reed's voice cut through the noise. Any species that attempts to weaponize this technology will lose access to it immediately. The Prometheus and her sister ships will enforce this rule. The Quantum Collective's representative stood up. How can you prevent military applications when the technology itself is so powerful? Reed smiled. Because we built safeguards into the very fabric of the knowledge we're sharing. Dr. Thompson's team encoded the educational packages with 7-dimensional locks. Any attempt to use the technology for warfare automatically triggers a shutdown. He gestured to a side screen where Captain Kane stood on the Prometheus's bridge. Additionally, Earth's dimensional defense fleet will maintain peace, not through force, but through prevention. We can detect and neutralize dimensional weapons before they're even fully activated. The Silicon Consciousness representative spoke next, and humanity will control this power alone. No, Reed replied firmly. We're establishing the Dimensional Science Coalition. Every peaceful species can join, contribute, and help guide the development of this technology. The age of single-species dominance is over. The chamber's mood shifted from cautious interest to genuine excitement. Species that had been enemies for millennia now looked at each other with new possibilities in mind. The technology that could have become the ultimate weapon was instead becoming the ultimate tool for unity. The first training center opens on Mars next month, Reed announced. Representatives from all member species will be welcome. Together, we'll explore not just the 7 dimensions we know, but perhaps more that we haven't yet discovered. On the screens, images showed the construction of the Mars facility. It was massive, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and forms. Lecture halls could shift their dimensional properties to allow different species to perceive information in ways their minds could process. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, Reed concluded, not because we're superior, but because we understand what it's like to be underestimated, to be dismissed. We know that real strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting them up. The main speaker's colors had settled into a calm blue pattern. The Council recognizes humanity's extraordinary contribution to galactic civilization. The vote to establish the Dimensional Science Coalition will begin now. Reed watched as the votes came in. Species after species, even those who had once been enemies, voted to join. The Mersians, humbled by their encounter with the Prometheus, were among the first to support the initiative. As the final votes were tallied, Reed thought about how far humanity had come. From being laughed at in this very chamber to reshaping the future of galactic civilization, not through conquest or dominance, but through innovation and wisdom. The age of dimensional warfare had been prevented before it could begin. Instead, a new era of exploration, cooperation, and discovery was dawning. The galaxy would never be the same, and for once, change was bringing hope rather than fear. Humanity had not just proved itself, it had helped create a better future for all species.